At this time, I'd like to introduce our first presenter. Justin Mayer is Product Manager for System Sensor. Justin, take it away.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for the warm introduction. We would like to thank everybody in attendance today for taking time to really educate themselves and become better at what we all do. This webinar is really aimed for people who are using or involved with our products, and it's really customer focused in that we're getting a lot of questions both this year and also in years past that are very common in nature, and we want to take some time to address as many of those as we can. So this webinar is going to be focused on a multitude of things. It's going to be very conceptual in terms of looking at carbon monoxide, everything from science behind it to some of the common misconceptions that are out there related to that. And then we're going to dive a little bit into some product-specific questions that we do get with our smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. So we're hoping that as you're sitting throughout this today, maybe one slide is some information that you already know, but the next one is something that has information that's very useful to you. So as we're working through it today, we're focused on system-connected, hardwired, and wireless products, and they're mainly intended for residential applications. We're not going to dive too much into commercial products as far as code or anything like that. We're really going to focus on the residential products that are out there. If you're familiar with system sensor products, with carbon monoxide detectors, we're talking about the CL1224T and the CL1224TR. And if you are familiar with our combination product, it's the i4 series that we'll be going over as well. So I want to kick things off and talk a bit about general carbon monoxide. And what we're doing here is we're laying the foundation for the rest of the presentation and making sure that we're all on the same page as we're going through this webinar. You know, many people on this probably already know what carbon monoxide is, but it's really important for us in this industry, and that being the life safety industry, to really understand what the characteristics are of carbon monoxide and why that makes it such a danger to people within a home. You know, carbon monoxide is made by the is produced by the incomplete combustion of burning of various fossil fuels. And as you'll see from this list, you know, it's things that are commonly found within the home, whether it's you know, a wood from a fireplace, charcoal from a grill, or natural gas and propane from heating appliances. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless, so the human senses cannot detect it like they can with, say, smoke, which oftentimes, you know, smoke is visible, and you can smell that as well. So, you know, for people, regardless of whether you're installing a product and that, we want people to know that by understanding, you know, this characteristic of carbon monoxide, it's going to hopefully drive people to take the appropriate action should an event occur. So a lot of times when people are talking about the sources of carbon monoxide, or people are talking to us about it, furnaces are typically referenced as a source, which are tied to thermostats and things like that. We want people to know that there are, you know, multiple sources beyond that, beyond just furnaces. We do believe that most everybody understands that, but just for sake of clarity, it could come from anywhere, like from a gas range or oven, which are found in kitchens. It can even come from power tools, anything that's, you know, burning gas to create power. You know, as we've all been reading in the news lately, there's been some catastrophic weather events that have come about. Superstorm Sandy in New York, Hurricane Katrina, and other things. And what happens is power is knocked out. People want to get power back as soon as possible, so they'll fire up a portable generator. Well, many times people don't understand that portable generators, you know, burn fuel, fossil fuels, and as a result, you know, are releasing carbon monoxide into the air. And so we want to make sure that people understand that that's a potential source of it, so they're not putting it in their home or in their garage and potentially exposing themselves to that. There's been a number of news cases where people have done that, and I think simply just educating people on the fact that that's a possibility, potential source, is education in itself that is highly valuable, let alone from the detection of it. So if a CO event does occur, we want people to know that this is why it's really important to get people out of the house. You know, if there's people on this call who are not only installing but are monitoring. We know a lot of companies out there are doing both functions. We want them to be able to help communicate the importance of getting out of the house should a CO event occur. And we think the best way to do that is to talk through really what the symptoms are when a CO event occurs. We're looking at a chart here, and it has on the vertical axis the amount of carbon monoxide that goes into somebody's bloodstream when an event happens. And then the horizontal axis is the amount of time that person is exposed to. And as you can see, the more time that somebody is exposed to that, and the higher amount of carbon monoxide they're exposed to, the symptoms go from such as a common, cold or flu-like symptom of a headache or drowsiness on up to a lethal dosage. And so if people are feeling ill, multiple people are feeling ill, the natural inclination is to lay down, and sleep it off, take a nap, when really what they need to do is get out of the house. And so by having CO detection within a home, people can take the appropriate action and save lives. When CO detectors are designed, they're built to a certain threshold that goes back to that chart that you just looked at before. And people ask us about, is it detecting a certain variable amount? A CO detector is reading at parts per million, which is commonly referred to as ppm. And as you'll see in this table here, the detector will respond within a certain period of time given the amount of ppm that it is detecting within carbon monoxide. We're going to definitely tell you to reference installation manuals, data sheets, and other reference tools available by System Sensor or any other manufacturer when wanting to understand the thresholds of a certain device. So this is a very controversial question, in that is carbon monoxide heavier than air? And this question really drives a lot of decisions taken by people in this industry, as well as the homeowners that are out there. It not only helps people decide which detector to purchase, but where to place it within the home, and then should a CO event occur, what to do when that event happens. So we're going to look at it a couple different ways. We're going to start off by just taking a look at the chemistry of it. Air is measured in grams per molecule. And as you'll see here, it's actually not heavier than air, carbon monoxide. And due to the scientific understanding, NFPA 720 has designated an alarm detector should be located on the wall, ceiling, or any other location as specified by the manufacturer in its published instructions. So please always review the instruction manual that comes with the device, and refer to that for understanding where that device should be installed. So that's the chemistry side of it. Sometimes some of us are visual learners, much like myself, and want to take a look at, here's what happens during a typical event. So we've got a CO leak in the living room. We're going to show here in a couple slides. So for this particular example, let's say that just for this example, for this exercise, that carbon monoxide is not colorless, that you can actually see it. And what oftentimes the misconception is that, as you can see in this blue on here, that's the representation of the misconception of carbon monoxide, and that's that it's pillow height or sinks to the ground. Second, and this misconception comes from that the mistaken thought of that it's heavier than air. But really what happens is there's an even dispersion of carbon monoxide that in a room as it enters there and fills it up. So it looks more like this whole picture of all blue should it be visible. But as like I said before, that's just for this exercise, is a colorless gas. But let's take a look at it from a number of ways here. There have been some third-party studies out there. The FPRF study And this is for the development of a technical basis for carbon monoxide detector sitting, done in 2007. And what happened was they found out that whenever a ventilation system is present and is operating, that ventilation system is going to dominate the flows within the building, and it's going to cause that carbon monoxide to be well stirred within its environment. So it's going to really distribute very evenly within the environment that air is in. Another study done in 2012 is by the Center of Hyperbaric Medicine. And what they want to do is take a look using data and come up with some recommendations of where a CO alarm or detector should be placed. And they found that as they did this study, CO did not layer on the floor, nor did it even hang out in the middle of the chamber or rise to the top. They found that it equalized in every single case throughout the entire chamber. So their conclusion is that it is reasonable to put a detector or alarm of carbon monoxide at any height within a room. So hoping that clarifies it. So with that understanding and taking a look at that third-party data, we have some recommendations as to where a CO detector or a combination CO and smoke detector should be installed. Some of the do's is that we recommend it be placed on every single floor and within 10 feet of all sleeping areas. We also want to have it within any room that contains a fuel-burning appliance. If you're going to put it on the wall, you want it to be at least 4 inches down from the ceiling. But if you are going to put it on the ceiling, make sure it's located at least 12 inches away from any single wall. Should it be in a vaulted ceiling, say like an A-frame home, you want to have it at least 3 feet from the peak. But we're always going to reference NFPA 72. We want anybody using our detectors to do that, and also consult the local AHJ for any placement and spacing guidelines. The don'ts for the don't do's for placing a CO or CO smoke detector are don't put it within 10 feet of any cooking appliance, sink, stove, or oven. You don't want to have it next to a door or window where there's extra airflow and could potentially skew the readings of the environment. Or you don't want to have it where airflow is obstructed. So tucking a detector behind a couch or curtain, things like that, where it does not have access to the ambient air conditions within a room, will prevent you from getting an accurate reading in what's going on there. And as always, consider dirt or dust as it may block the sensor and cause other issues. So when System Sensor and other manufacturers design devices, they are designed to work within a specific operating range of temperature and humidity. And we want to make sure that those guidelines are followed. And so refer to the installation instructions on that, but they'll tell you that putting in places like an attic where temperatures can get very hot in the summer and exceed the operating temperatures are not recommended. So taking a look at a system-connected device and trying to sell that within a home, a lot of times people are coming to us and asking, I'm having troubles explaining the difference between a do-it-yourself option to my customers versus a system-connected. And we want to just take a few minutes here to help address that challenge that we're seeing out there. So a system-connected option, as you can see, offers a lot more touch points than what would be a do-it-yourself product. And that's the fact that it talks to a security panel, and the homeowner has access to that through the keypad, so they can get information as that device sends information to the security panel. They can also, the homeowner can interact with a monitoring station, and then should an event occur and the homeowner become incapacitated, that monitoring station can reach out to the fire department on their behalf. Things that would not happen with a standalone system that's out there. We refer to our devices as detectors, and there's also alarms out there. For anybody on the call, just the difference between the two is that a detector is something that we refer to as system connected. Through that monitoring, It can provide assistance during an event. Has AV notification, so there's temporal patterns in an event, and there's also indications whether it be an LED or a readout on the panel or the control panel. Our detector will send maintenance notifications that need to be done, as well as end of life. That maintenance and end of life may happen an alarm, or it may not, but it's not system connected. An alarm is not going to provide assistance during the event. Just things to consider as you're working with your customer base on that, and really helping to clarify some of those definitions. Question that comes in from time to time, so especially now that a combination detector is out, one that we're getting a lot of questions on, and Doug will talk about a bit later on, is what if my detector is thinking that there's a smoke event or a CO event going on at the same time? Which of those has priority? And according to NFPA 72, fire alarm signals shall take precedence over all other signals, except as permitted by 10.7.1 or 10.7.3. The system sensor designs its devices to follow that NFPA guideline. And 10.7.5 says carbon monoxide signals shall be permitted to take precedence over supervisory and trouble conditions. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to David for a poll question.
All right. Thank you, Justin. We do have our first poll question. So because there are so many questions about detector placement, we just have a kind of a quick quiz here. So you've heard information from Justin on proper placement. So please select all that apply. Go ahead and come back to your screens. You can click on them to click those responses. And just a hint, it is a couple of these. So is a CO detector supposed to be on every floor? Is it supposed to be within 10 feet of all sleeping areas? On a wall or ceiling, in a garage or unfinished attic, in any room that contains a fuel-burning appliance. So go ahead and vote. We'd love all of you to take part of our polls, take part in our polls here. So Justin and Doug, we do have a couple of questions posted, and I know we're going to hear from Doug here in a moment. So Justin, the first one is after a carbon monoxide event. So if a home or residential multifamily type application does have a CO incident, what happens to that CO cell? Does it need to be replaced, or can it be reset once the air clears?
Yeah, once the air clears from our products, the CO sort of our TTR and our common detector, the device can be used again. So the CO cell that we use does allow that, so the device does not need to be replaced at that time.
All right. Doug, kind of a product question, next one here. He's talking about the end of life. He's asking for clarification. What does end of life mean for a CO detector? And what happens with that CO detector? Does it sound locally? Does it send a signal to the panel? What's going on there with end of life?
Okay, David, with all of our detectors have end of life. So in fact, all CO detectors in general have an end of life. The CO cell on our detectors will last for 6 years. After that 6 years, they will send a trouble signal to the panel, notifying the central station that they are at end of life, and visually indicate end of life at the detector itself. The audible portion depends on which detector you're talking about. Our I4 combination detector, after 30 days of sending that trouble signal to the panel, it will actually audibly chirp, to annoy the homeowner and let them know that that it's no longer detecting CO. In the case of the CO1224T, it does not chirp. It just visually indicates and sends a signal to the panel.
Okay, very good. So we do encourage questions, so go ahead and post them at this time. Guys, I'm going to pull down this poll question. We had 79% voted, and let me go ahead and publish the results so we can do a quick query on the audience here. So where should you place the CO detector? What we've covered and what is recommended is on every floor, within 10 feet of a sleeping area, on the wall or ceiling, and in any room that contains a fuel-burning appliance. The caution, and it looks like the minority of you checked garage or unfinished attic. Garages or unfinished attics can get to temperature ranges that exceed the detector. So that under 40 or over 100 degrees Fahrenheit are ranges that the detector may not operate. So we do not recommend an attic or a unfinished attic or a garage where there's really the temperature extremes. So looks like most people got that right. Thank you for voting in that. 79% did vote, and just so you know, we have almost 400 people online with us today. So next, we're going to transition to Doug Haferly. Doug is a Senior Product Marketing Manager for System Sensor. Doug, you're next up.
Thanks, David, and thanks again to everybody for joining our webinar today. We really can't talk about CO these days without being asked a ton of questions about our new i4 combo CO smoke detector. So we're going to take a few minutes to cover some of the more frequently asked questions that we get. For those of you who are not familiar with i4, the i4 system is made up of, as you can see in the slide, a combination detector and a panel interface module. The detector itself can detect CO, and it also has a photoelectric smoke chamber as well. It's really a great way to protect your customers from obviously the dangers of both smoke and CO, but it also makes your installations much more cost effective and more profitable. Not to mention that homeowners really want less devices on their walls and ceilings. So one of the more frequently asked questions that we get is the i4 series 2-wire or a 4-wire detector. And actually the answer to that is it's both. Similar to our smoke detectors, we have two models. We have a 2-wire model with a 2-wire module, and we have a 4-wire detector model with a 4-wire module as well. What that does for you is that makes your retrofits using existing wires very easy and saves up to 75% of the wire that would be used with separate devices. Another question we often get is, does the i4 detect heat? The answer to that is no. The i4 just detects smoke and carbon monoxide. One of the big questions is, what does the module do? The module is actually kind of the black magic behind the system, and it performs a number of purposes for the system. First, it interprets the signal from the detector, so an alarm signal, whether that's CO or smoke, maintenance signals, CO end-of-life signals, and it transmits that signal to the control panel. It also reverses the polarity for sounder activation. So when one device on that module's loop goes into alarm, all the devices on that loop will sound in the proper temporal code, temporal 3 for fire or temporal 4 for CO. So the RSS mod is no longer needed for that, that sounder interconnection. Another thing that the module does that I'm going to go back a slide is it allows you to configure how you report smoke maintenance signals, either reporting those to the smoke maintenance zone or to the smoke zone itself. Smoke maintenance zone would be a zone that you set up at the panel that's dedicated to receiving the smoke maintenance signals like a dirty detector or so forth. To configure where you want to send the maintenance signals, we have that dip switch that appears in the upper right-hand portion of the module itself. And then also for Style D, the module allows you in 2-wire systems to wire Style D style, or sometimes known as Class A, and that's where you can home run the wiring back from the last detector to the module. That's not all it does. There's some other questions in here that were asked, and they'll touch on other aspects of the module. So what are the panel requirements for the module? Well, the module actually requires 3 things from the panel. It requires resettable smoke power, just like a 4-wire detector. We've shown the boxes on the right in terms of where the module would connect to that resettable smoke power from the panel. It also requires a dedicated smoke zone. Here we're showing the terminals on the module that would connect to the smoke zone. And lastly, by code, it requires a dedicated CO zone at the panel. We're again highlighting the terminals that will connect to the CO zone on the panel. Those are the three things that are needed by the panel. Optionally, I discussed that the module can report smoke maintenance zones to a maintenance zone set up at the panel. That's what those terminals are for. We do have a number of wiring cheat sheets that can help you to configure the I4 with particular panels. Those can be found at ystem-connected.com/I4. And as a side note, our two-wire system does not require the two-wire compatibility that is often required of two-wire smoke detectors. That is because the module is actually seen as a four-wire smoke detector from the panel, and it gets its power from the panel. So the compatibility from a UL standpoint is really between the module and the connected detectors, which leads to probably the most frequently asked question that we get. What products are compatible with the i4 series module? Well, obviously the i4 series combination detectors are compatible, but also our i3 series smoke detectors with sounders are compatible. So you're not limited to just installing combo detectors with the module. You can really be flexible in terms of where you place the combination detectors and where you place the smoke detectors. Can heat detectors be used? Heat detectors can only be used with a four-wire module, but you're probably better off using those on a separate loop. How many detectors can be used per module? Up to 12 detectors can be used per module. Any combination of smokes and combo units can be used, just up to 12. Can the module be interconnected? Yes, if you go beyond the 12 detectors per module, or if you want to split up floors into zones, so that perhaps you have upstairs on one zone, downstairs on another zone, there are actually triggers, those are highlighted there in red on the module, that can be used to activate the sounders of all detectors on that module's loop. What the triggers need is a positive input voltage from an aux relay on the panel. So if one module goes into alarm, you would trigger another module by using an aux relay on the panel, and then put a positive voltage to those trigger inputs. Or in the case of smoke, you could use a bell out from the panel to trigger the smoke side. Again, all detectors on that loop would sound either in temporal 3 for smoke or temporal 4 for CO. So by interconnecting the modules, you can really create a whole house interconnection scenario. Where should the module be installed? Quite simply, the best place to put the module is really next to the panel in terms of trying to save wiring. But listed are the requirements from our installation manual. It is within 20 feet of the panel and in the same room. The module can be installed inside a metal enclosure. In that case, it does not have to have the plastic cover on top. And for UL 864 applications, wiring must be enclosed in conduit or protected from physical damage. David, it's time for another poll question.
All right. Thank you, Doug. And we are answering a lot of questions offline as well. So if you're seeing those pop into your questions tab or your chat tab on your GoToWebinar control panel, know that Jackie Laurenti is hard at work in the background here. She's our marketing manager. and she's answering as many questions as we can get to. So the next poll question really is about awareness. Doug covered the new i4 series combo CO smoke detector in some detail, and we just wonder, it's been out since April. Are you aware of it but haven't purchased it? Are you both aware and maybe you have purchased it? This is the first time you're hearing about the product, or perhaps we do have a large number of AHJs that join us. Maybe you don't buy, specify, or install any products. Go ahead and check that box. So go ahead and vote on that. And guys, we do have a couple more questions we'd like to ask live here. Doug, I think the next one's for you here. Let me just read it. In the combination detectors, when the CO alarm goes off, if you have multiple combo detectors, will all sound? So will all sound CO? I guess that kind of an interconnect question there.
Yes, and that is, I think what the question is. Yes, they will all sound. So when one goes into alarm, the sounders will activate on all in a temporal 4 code. Even the i3 smoke detectors that have sounders and are connected to that loop will sound in temporal 4 as well, David.
Okay, good. Next question is about occupancies, and they're looking at this i4 detector and saying, boy, it looks like it might be great for residential or multifamily. Justin, what about detectors used in more commercial applications, parking garages, warehouses, that kind of thing? So their question specifically is, are CO detectors available for occupancies other than residential?
There are devices out there that do detect carbon monoxide and are aimed specifically at other applications that you looked at, or you just mentioned before, like parking garages and things like that. So we ourselves are not focused on talking about that today, but should you contact us, that's definitely something we can point you towards in the future.
Okay. And also a sister company of ours, and we just kind of interject here, small commercial, Honeywell Analytics is a company that does a wide range of different types of gas detection, including commercial-based CO detection. So maybe that if your question is specific to parking structures, I know that they have a wide range of CO detectors that are more designed for commercial applications too. Okay, guys, let me take down this poll question, and I'll share the results with you and the audience as well. So it looks like 42% of our audience was aware of i4 prior to this webinar but haven't purchased it. 5% are both aware and purchased it, so thank you very much. And then 35% of our audience was not aware of it prior, and 18%, which is a number interesting, that's a number that holds true with most of our webinars, maybe more the HJ community, don't buy, specify, or install products. So let me take that down. And Doug, we are back to you.
Thanks, David. Just a couple of more questions here before we open it up to the questions that our attendees have for us. First question here is the i4 series addressable. The answer to this is no, it's not an addressable system. It was designed as a conventional system. You can, using mini mods or dual mini mods for the zones, have an addressable kind of zone created at the panel, but it's probably not practical from a cost standpoint to make each i4 detector an addressable detector. The last FAQ I have is a kind of, again, touching on what happens at CO end of life. This is pretty straightforward. The life of the CO cell is 6 years. 30 days prior to that end of life, we will send the panel a maintenance signal, and blue LED on the detector and the module will blink, indicating that that the detector needs service. After 30 days, if the detector has not been serviced, it will start to chirp. And servicing the detector is really easy. As you can see in the picture there, we offer a replaceable CO cell that can be easily installed into the detector. So, David, that's all I have. I think it's time for our last poll question.
You bet. It sure is. Let me launch this last poll question. It's kind of a non-traditional poll question. It's really, how can we help you? Is there something that we've said today that prompted a need for more information? Maybe you'd like us to send that i4 combo data sheet the CO smoke detector FAQs, our engineering spec on I4 and the modules, maybe a link to additional I4 online training for maybe you or some of your people that you work with, or perhaps you'd like to have a system sensor sales representative give you a call. I'm going to leave this up for a couple minutes, guys, while we're answering some of the questions that have floated in here. So the next question is related to the combo CO smoke detector about temp 4. So when temp 4 is activated from CO detection, and then there's a smoke alarm, how would it actually work on the audible side, and which products does System Sensor offer? So it looks like it's, you might have a CO event, and then there's also a smoke event. How the audibility work, and what do we offer for that?
Okay. Well, if there's a CO event and then a smoke event occurs, as Justin alluded to in his portion of the presentation, the smoke event takes priority. And so what would happen with the actual product itself is it would switch from that temporal 4 audible tone to a temporal 3 audible tone. And then at the module, you would see that the red LED is illuminated, and it would send a smoke signal to the central station.
Okay. Good, good. What about a couple questions here? They know that there's some very firm spacing guidelines for smoke detectors. What about spacing guidelines for carbon monoxide detectors?
Okay, yeah, I can take this one. For carbon monoxide detectors, there is not a spacing guideline in NFPA. However, if we are talking about the combo CO and smoke, the I4 series, given the fact that there is a smoke detector within that device, you want to follow those spacing guidelines for that as well as they apply to smoke detectors.
Okay. All right. Very good. Specific to the I4 product, they're wondering about approvals or listings that are available on the I4 CO smoke detector.
The I4 detector is detected for UL 2075, which is gas, and UL 268, which is smoke. And then the module itself is listed for use with UL 985 panels. Those are more Resi Berg panels, and for use with UL 864, which is more commercial panels. In addition to that, we also have a CSFM listing for the state of California.
Okay. All right. Very good. Next question up, CO detection is not required in my state. What is System Sensor doing to educate local AHJs about the need or use of CO detection?
Yeah, many AHJs are on our webinars, probably quite a few right now, and also receive our newsletters. So through those means, there's quite a bit of education that we put out there. System Sensor is also very active in terms of industry affairs at the state levels as well.
Okay. All right. This question is kind of similar to another one we just had, but is there specific, or what are the NFPA requirements for audibility for CO smoke detectors?
Just 1 second, David. I'm going to pull that up.
Ah, very good.
Just so we're clear on it. Yep.
Okay. So I'm looking at NFPA, and signals from carbon monoxide detectors shall be, oops, sorry. The integral sounder of a system-connected CO detector may be sufficient for notifying building occupants. So where CO signals are transmitted to a constantly attended on-site location or off-premises location in accordance with Chapter 7, selective mode occupant notification shall be permitted to be limited to the notification zone encompassing the area where the carbon monoxide signal originated. Okay. So that means you just need local enunciation, David. Mm-hmm. You really don't need interconnection. Of course, it does provide a value add to have that interconnection functionality.
Okay. All right. Justin, you covered the kind of dispersal of CO. Does CO stratify like smoke might? So I guess how does this stratification rules apply to CO as well as smoke?
Yeah, when people are talking about beam detection and that, the word stratification definitely comes up. But CO does not stratify like smoke does. It is initially rises, oftentimes because it is a hot out of air due to combustion, but it quickly disperses into that environment.
Okay. Hey, we do encourage your questions to go ahead and post them at this time. We do have a number of others that have been posted here that we're answering offline and online here live, and we will continue this as long as we have questions available. So next one, Doug, it looks like if the detector, here's the question, if the detector is exposed to high levels of CO, does it shorten the detector life or require replacement of the CO cell?
Not in the case of our detectors, David. Testing them or exposure to high levels of CO will not shorten their life.
Okay. All right. Good. Justin, I know Jackie offered this as an offline answer too, but it's been asked again. That question about when CO comes from like a fuel source, it's hot or it's warmer than the air. So their question is, wouldn't CO from some wood burning or from burning fuel be warmer than air and then tend to rise initially?
Yeah, if it is warm, the air itself, it is naturally going to rise. So that all depends on the appliance that is releasing that carbon dioxide in the air. Okay. However, we just want to clarify that once it is in the air, even if it starts off warm and rises, it does quickly disperse into a well-mixed state within that environment.
Okay. All right. Doug, they have a question on one of your slides. You talked about a smoke maintenance zone. So what defines a smoke maintenance zone?
A smoke maintenance zone would be a zone on the panel that is set up or dedicated to receive just the maintenance or supervisory signals. In the case of a smoke maintenance zone, could be a dirty detector. Our i3 series have freeze warnings, so that could be sent to that maintenance zone as well.
Okay. All right. Justin, it looks like we have somebody visiting us from Canada here, and they're asking about, is the i4 designed for use in Canada? And if not, what CO products are available in Canada?
The i4 itself is not listed for use in Canada, but the 1224 products that we have are listed for Canadian use.
Okay, all right. I'm going to be taking down the how we can help you slide here in just a second, so if there's any others that want to jump in, we've got a large percentage that want some kind of follow-up from us, so we will do that, but just note that'll be coming down and we'll be going to the last slide here. And we do plan to continue questioning as long as we have it through the end of the hour, so we hope you stay with us. Next question, I guess I can answer this one, guys. It's been answered online as well. Will the PowerPoint be available to all attendees? And we do offer the archive of the webinar, so it's both the PowerPoint with the audio. We think that's a lot better tool for you to use. You get the answers directly. You hear the comments made by our presenters and the questions. So that will be available online at systemsensor.com under our training tab. We hope to get that posted very shortly, probably within a couple days. So check back early next week if you want one of your maybe other guys or employees that you work with to view this as well. Doug, a question here. I have HJs in engineering calling for tandem operation. So when one CO goes off, they all go off. Can the i4 provide that functionality?
Yes. The i4 does provide that functionality. Like I mentioned before, when one goes into alarm, they all go into alarm. Even the connected i3 series smoke detectors. And then there are the two audible signals, either temporal 3 or 4, depending on what the alarm is in the residence.
Yeah, tandem and interconnection are oftentimes used interchangeably as we discussed that. So that's a good question.
Okay, all right. Looks like, and I'll give this a toss-up question so either of you guys can answer this. What type of testing agent should be used with i4?
I'll take that one, David. The testing agent that should be used to functionally test the CO cell itself is Solo C6 brand canned CO. That is what is listed with agency, so that's why you would want to use that Solo C6 brand.
Okay, all right. Justin, the question here is CO testing equipment specific to each manufacturer? Or I guess I'll open it up to either of you. So is CO testing equipment specific to each manufacturer, or can testing equipment be used across the board?
It is specific to manufacturer, David. Like I was just mentioning, you have to use the CO that is listed with agency.
Okay, okay, good. Good. I don't know how many people know that. That's probably a good piece to get out on this webinar. Doug, a specific question on 520 hertz. We know that there's some new requirements for that low-frequency sounder for those jurisdictions in NFPA 2010 and 2013. And they're asking here, will the sounder in this detector meet the new 520 hertz requirements effective January 1st for sleeping spaces?
No, actually, a separate 520 hertz sounder would be needed. We do make those separate sounders, and the sounder strobes as well. Those can be found on our website.
Okay, all right, very good. Justin, you talked about a 10-foot rule. They're wondering is that a code requirement or a general suggestion? So the detector within 10 feet of, say, some sort of steam or cooking or something like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that is definitely something that we're telling is an actual rule and as a guideline for that. Any closer than within 10 feet, especially given certain, like you mentioned, steam or any other environmental issue that might be caused, might cause a problem with the detector itself. So definitely keep things 10 feet away from any potential hazard.
Okay. Doug, I know one of your slides talked about the module and the suggestion or recommendation, I guess, to put it within 20 feet of the panel. Why is that? Why install the module within 20 feet?
That's actually a requirement of our agency listing with UL.
Okay. All right.
So
very
has a lot to do with the testing and supervision.
Okay. Very good. Question here I can answer. Will the training link be emailed out to webinar participants? Yes, it will. If you're asking about the training link, that's number 4, I guess, under the send link to online training, that will be mailed out if you check that box. So I'll leave that up for one more question. I'll take it down, and then we'll get to some contact information for Doug and Justin here if you want to follow up with them specifically. Question about the I4 series. Is it a photoelectric detector, ionization detector, or both?
I think you're talking about the smoke portion of that, I'm sure, or I should say that's what the person is asking.
Yep.
It's actually a photoelectric detector. It is not an ionization detector.
Okay. All right. Doug, question specific about I4 here. So will the unit function without the module? So do they need that module to be able to participate and use the I4 in their installations?
Yes, they need the module. It really won't function without the module. The module is what's used to interpret the signals over the wires, just 2 or 4 wires. Otherwise, there would be 8 or 10 terminals on the detector itself. Obviously, it would be grow in size and be much more difficult to install, pull all those wires to it, and connect all those terminals. Okay.
Very good. Here's a toss-up question. They're asking about wireless versions of I4 detectors. So any plans in the works to make a combo I4 series wireless detector?
Yes, stay tuned.
Okay. Very good. So we're working on something there, it sounds like. Let's see here. I think we've answered this one. Should the detector be mounted at least 10 feet away from a gas fireplace? The answer is yes to that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. That's an easy one. Good. Okay, a question about battery backup. Does your control panel have a battery backup?
It is a requirement for the control panel to have a battery backup. And I don't know the exact specifics, but there are some requirements around, I believe it's 24-hour battery backup.
Okay. All right. Good. Let's see. They're writing here, I believe the local code for smoke detector placement is within 18 inches of peak of ceiling. They believe we stated 3 feet for CO, so how do we use the combo? How do we address the combo?
As always, we definitely want to encourage people to work with their local AHJ, and we explain, in our documentation, the recommendation of 3 feet, and definitely take that documentation and work with your AHJ on that. But we always want people to do their due diligence and double check that. So.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Doug, a question on I-4. Could the I-4 be used in a typical small office environment versus using a commercial-grade CO detector?
Yeah, I'm a little bit thrown by the commercial-grade CO detector side because these detectors can be used with both resi and commercial panels. So yeah, the I-4 could definitely be used in a small office, a daycare facility, a Boy Scout lodge, anything like that. It could certainly be used in those areas.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's see. What happens in an appliance to cause CO?
So as alluded before, that carbon monoxide is a byproduct of combustion when a fossil fuel is burned. So anything that would be burning any of the fossil fuels that we've listed below, anything from wood to gas, is going to cause that combustion. And so if an appliance has a leak or a blockage in some area where it can't properly ventilate, that carbon monoxide quite possibly may come back into the home and cause the problems.
Okay. Hey guys, I'd ask you to go to the next slide. I know that's your contact information here. We're closing up on our time here. We've got a few minutes left. We'll handle all the questions that we can in the time reserved. So if you do have information you'd like to get or give from Justin or Doug, there's their contact information. And we will send that out also as an email afterwards. So a question here, guys. Maybe this one's to Doug because it's I-4 related. How many zones per I-4 module?
Okay, I'm thinking they're asking how many zones on the panel does the I-4 module require. It requires a minimum of 2 zones on the panel, a smoke zone and a CO zone. And then, like I mentioned before, you can set with the dip switch to report smoke maintenance to a separate maintenance zone as well.
Okay. All right. Next question, where can I get the sensitivity reader tester information?
If you're looking for the information, we have that type of access on our system sensor website, but we also encourage people to go to their local system sensor security dealer and work with them to get that as well.
Okay. All right. Very good. Next question here. Why is a hard-wired CO device better than a local one? I know you had a slide that covers that, but maybe a quick recap for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. A hardwired CO detector versus something that is just local is the local one does not communicate back to any control panel, and as a result is not being monitored by anybody outside the home. So if something goes wrong, you've got more than just the people in the home to help out and take the appropriate action when that happens.
Okay. All right. Got a couple questions left here, so we'll keep going through them here. Doug, is the smoke detector portion of the I-4 unit field serviceable, and can it be taken apart and cleaned?
Yes, the cover of the smoke chamber, twists off and can be removed, and the smoke chamber itself can then be pulled straight up and removed for cleaning.
Okay. All right. What happens if the CO module is left out of the I-4 detector?
If the CO module is left out and you reinstall the detector to the base, what happens is you're going to get a CO trouble signal at the panel, and it'll also show up visually at the module and on the detector itself with the blue LED blinking.
Okay. All right. This is the last question we have posed. Oh, we have one more slipped in here. I'll assign that to Jackie. She might be able to answer that offline. So here's the last question we'll cover in the time that we have. They're asking about a CO addressable detector. Anything like that available? Any plans in the works for us?
There are addressable CO detectors that are made. Those are specific to the panels, the addressable panels. So like Silent Night has some, I know. Gamewell FCI, so you really got to check with those panel manufacturers.
Okay, very good. So that's the questions that we have posted here. So on behalf of System Sensor, I do want to thank you for joining us today. Doug and Justin, thank you for your presentation. As a follow-up, we will be sending all the attendees a brief survey in about an hour and would appreciate your help in filling that out. And we do plan to reward one of you that completes the survey with a $50 Amazon gift card. So thank you again for joining us. This does conclude our webinar. Please have a nice rest of the day.